had somebody in the comments of my video talking about being in a band and how it can suck. I had him say, try working in the shipyard. Look, man, I know there are a lot of harder jobs out there, physically draining jobs, jobs that can leave you injured later in life. And look, the reason why we become musicians is to escape places like the shipyard. Look at Ozzy Osbourne. You know, he grew up in an industrial town. And I believe Tony Iommi, didn't he lose one of his fingers working in a factory? And, you know, a lot of us see the drudgery of a regular job, see the drudgery of, what is in store for people that don't have another outlet. And look, there is no guarantees in life. There is no guarantee that you're going to make it if you set out on the path of being a musician. I've seen people with not so much talent skyrocket, and I've seen geniuses. I've seen genius, and they have remained in obscurity their entire career. So being a musician is not an easy task, right? Because look, if you worked at the shipyard, if you worked in that factory, you would be guaranteed an amount of money each week, depending on how many hours that you worked, right? You would at least be guaranteed a decent wage. When you're a musician, especially when you're just starting out, especially when I was just starting out in Nashville, and the town was not booming, and every club was not packed. And I've talked about this before, man. When I moved to Nashville in '94, man, it was nowhere near the boom town that it is now. And I would get a call, hey, you want to play, got a gig next Thursday. It's at this club, and who's on the gig? Okay. And it would be literally an all-star lineup of incredible musicians. And we would go play the gig, sometimes at places like 3rd and Lindsley, different places around town. Or I think there was a place called F. Scott's in Green Hills we used to play. And, at the end of the night, especially at 3rd and Lindsley, because you were working for the door there, man, if you didn't pull in the crowd, or if it was an off night, man, sometimes you'd be leaving there after 4 hours of work with $25. And you're playing with world-class musicians, maybe playing one of the best gigs of your life to a handful of people on a Tuesday night. And maybe that's not enough money to buy groceries for the week and, get gas home. I mean, the economy was in a different place then. So $25, look, man, and I did a video in my members section talking about, making rockstar ramen. And it was not rockstar ramen. It was starving musician ramen. And knowing if you say, make that $25 and you put $5 in your tank and your next gig is not till Friday or Saturday, and it's a Tuesday, and you've got to get to the next gig gas-wise, and you've got to get something to eat, to try to get through the next few days, and maybe you need a pack of strings. Maybe you're going to need a pack of strings to get through Friday and Saturday. So think about that. $5 in the tank, $5 for a pack of strings, right? If you're getting them at a good price. So then you've got $15 to eat Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday till you get to your gig, and hopefully have a decent paying gig that Friday. So, it's once again, look, it's either a dollar loaf of bread and some of those Buddig sandwich things or some cans of tuna or top ramen and some cans of tuna and and that's it. That's what you're going to exist over. Now, back then, a carton of eggs could be gotten cheap. Heck, I can remember, was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago? Maybe it was 4 years ago, being able to go to Aldi's and you could still used to be able to get a carton of eggs for 59 or 69 cents when they were on sale. So a dollar loaf of bread, a carton of eggs, there's your protein. You could make an egg sandwich, or you could make toast, or you could try to mix it up, or you could make French toast, but you might not have any syrup, you might not have any butter. These are realities. These are thoughts that would be going through my head when I would play a gig. And at the end of the night, I got $25 in my pocket, and I know I've got to make it. And obviously you can't even, when you doing a gig and you make $25, you're not even thinking about the rent at that time. You're not even thinking about the light bill or anything like that, man. That doesn't even give you enough money to even where you can even start to, okay, let me put aside some of this for rent. So you've got to hope that the next gig that comes along is going to pay decent. And usually weekend gigs would pay more, and maybe you would make $100, or maybe you'd make $150. And if it was a good one in town, it used to be $200. But man, there is no guarantee to any of that. And still to this day, when a musician goes and plays Lower Broadway in Nashville, there is a larger base pay than there used to be. I can remember, before the boom, base pay would be $25 or $30, something like that. And, the reality is you were only hoping that you had a good night as far as crowd turnout so that you could get tips. You get decent tips. Nobody back in those days ever really cared about the base pay, because you were hoping to have a good night and have some generous people in the audience, maybe people that were working better jobs than being a musician and would have enough money to pay something in that tip jar, because then when it's in that tip jar, when you're working the door at a club, it's all got to be split 4, 5. And if you've got a large band with 6 or 7 pieces, man, it becomes very difficult to make a decent amount of money. And that's not on top of the fact that you might get the call to play a gig and you might have to learn 40 songs in a day or 2 days. And, imagine doing that before the internet. What did you do? You might have to, call the band leader and say, hey, what are the chord changes to this or whatever? I mean, I don't know how we did it back then. You would have to try to get a recording. You would have to hit the band leader up. Hey, I need a tape. And so they would make you a tape of all the songs that you had to learn. But you've got to put all of those hours into learning those songs. And depending on how quick you can do that, depending on how much time it takes to develop your muscle memory to play some of the licks in the songs or whatever, man, your decent paying gig on a Friday, but learning 40 songs in 2 days, you start breaking down the amount of hours that you've worked to prepare for that gig. And you start realizing, man, I'm making like $250 an hour. If you put in all the time and effort. And that never ends. That never ends. You know, even on my last year playing in Nashville, I would have gigs where they would drop, okay, we got a gig Friday if you want to do it. And, but here's the 40 songs we're going to do. And I go, okay. And I'd learn the 40 songs. And then the night before, another 20 or 30 songs gets dropped. And that's just the reality of doing it, man. The reality is it cuts into your time because look, now I realize all that time I spent learning songs, I could have been working on my YouTube channel. I could have started the YouTube channel and did this way before, but I didn't really have that revelation that I could do that. So I was stuck in that loop of being a musician of, here's the thing, man. I'm being much more proactive now by getting this work in every day. A lot of the times as a musician, man, and look, there are guys that figured out how to hustle and will work all the time. And now let me tell you something, those guys know hundreds of songs. So if the most important lesson that you can learn from this video, if you're a young guy watching it, know as many songs as you can in as many different styles as possible. Be able to play in any style requested. Be able to quickly, at the snap of a finger, change your entire approach to playing. Be able to cop the tones, the vibe of something in an instant. A great band will know when they've got to change it up. Will know when, hey, what we're playing right now, this style of music is not working. And boom, they'll call a tune that's completely left field. And you're going to be able to change tones and change styles on maybe whatever instrument you have on in your hand and be able to change it up that quickly. That is a very important thing. If you're bringing a Gretsch hollow body to a gig and thinking that's going to cover everything, well, I guess if you're in a rockabilly only band, that's fine. But man, you know what? It's why I often would say I need a guitar, a Swiss Army knife guitar, a guitar that has many different sounds so that I can switch it up immediately. Even just a regular Strat with 3 single coils. And that's harder to pull off some of the hard rock stuff and 70s hard rock and things like that. That's a tougher thing to handle. So the reality is you've got to be able to switch musical styles at the stop of a dime, at the snap of a finger. You got to be able to switch it up, man. And that is the hard thing about being a musician. The reality is you can never stop learning. You've never reached your destination. Even if I'm not playing gigs right now, I'm still learning every day. I'm still trying to get better. I'm still trying to work out the puzzle in my head. What I can do to make it sound better. And that's a huge part of it. Look, the technology is always changing. If you're a keyboard player, you're not still out playing gigs with the DX7. If you're a keyboard player, you probably have a road crew if you're able to take a Fender Rhodes suitcase out on the road, or a B3, or any of those relics of the past. But what you are going to have to do is you're going to have to be able to change with the times, and that means buying gear. And buying gear is very expensive. And look, man, you've got to be able to maintain your equipment. You've got to be able to keep things working. If you start showing up for gigs with your jank ass combo amp that's always rattling and you're making weird sounds and all that, man. You can't have that on a corporate gig. If you're showing up with cables that are scratchy and noisy and all this other kind of nonsense, man, you're going to lose gigs quicker than you can imagine. You've got to maintain your gear, and that costs money. You've got to keep up with the times and play gear that's current and sounds, at the same level as stuff today. And that costs money. And so it's a never ending journey. It's a never ending chase of tone. It's a never ending chase of gear. You're always having to put money into the things that you use to make money. It's no buying one shovel and always being able to dig a hole. It's a constant chase of trying to keep up with the times because technology is always evolving and you've got to evolve with it. If you become a relic who is unable to adapt to whether, hey, maybe we're on silent stages now. If you become that tube amp relic, then you could be relicking yourself onto the sidelines because you've got to be able to shift with the times. You've got to be able to adapt. You've got to take the low paying gigs, to start out with. Every musician does it. And look, the challenges don't end with age. It just gets harder. But here's the cap on this. It's incredibly difficult being a musician. Being a musician can suck royally. But the reality is this, man. If I had it all to do over again, I wouldn't change a thing.